For over a decade, Ethan Carter lived quietly in his suburban home, a modest place with a wide driveway, a garage full of tools, and his pride and joy, a 1967 Chevy Camaro he'd been restoring for years. Ethan wasn't flashy. He paid his bills, kept his lawn neat, and stayed out of trouble. His neighbors did the same, and that's how he liked it, simple, no drama. But everything changed when the HOA from hell moved in, led by the smug, power-hungry Greg Thornton. What started as petty harassment spiraled into a war that ended with one phone call from Ethan turning Greg's empire into a crime scene. Buckle up, because this story of revenge and justice will leave you questioning who the real villains are. It began innocently enough. A new couple bought the house next door, and soon, flyers flooded mailboxes, lawn signs popped up overnight, and Ethan's quiet street was declared a community with a vision. Ethan ignored it. He didn't care about their rules on mailbox colors or grass height. But one morning, it got personal. A sharp knock rattled his door. Ethan, hands still greasy from working on his Camaro, opened it to find Greg Thornton, khakis too crisp, polo shirt too perfect, hair slicked back like he just stepped out of a yacht club. "Ethan, right?" Greg flashed a grin that screamed used car salesman. "I'm Greg Thornton, HOA president. We'd love to have you join our community association." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Not interested." Greg's smile flickered, like a glitch in a well-rehearsed script. "Let's hope you reconsider," he said, voice smooth but laced with venom. "We'd hate for you to feel left out." Ethan shut the door, sensing trouble but figuring he could handle it. He was wrong. The harassment started small but was relentless. Ethan's trash cans were mysteriously knocked over every pickup day, and garbage was strewn across his driveway. Never his neighbor's bins, just his. Then came the complaints, excessive noise, when Ethan was at work, lawn violations, despite his grass being pristine. Official HOA notices piled up in his mailbox, each one dripping with fake politeness and veiled threats. Friendly reminder, your lawn exceeds community standards. Address immediately to avoid fines. Ethan stood on his porch, crumpling one letter, staring at his perfectly trimmed yard. It was death by 1,000 cuts, but he stayed calm. He wasn't about to let these clipboard tyrants break him. Then they upped the ante. One Tuesday, Ethan found a bright orange sticker slapped on his front door, violation, unapproved fence height. He laughed. His fence had been there for years. He tore it off, tossed it, and moved on. But the next blow hit harder. One night, mid-game with a beer in hand, his house went dark. No storm, no warning, just a blackout. Stepping outside, Ethan saw every other house glowing. Just his was targeted. He called the electric company, and after navigating a maze of automated menus, a human confirmed the impossible. "A service cancellation request was submitted under your account yesterday." Ethan's blood boiled. Someone had shut off his power, and he knew who. The next morning, Ethan stormed into the HOA office, a pretentious building reeking of wasted fees, polished floors, mahogany desks, the works. Greg sat behind one, smug as ever. "Ethan, good to see you," he purred. Ethan slammed the power company letter down. "Cut the act, Greg." "Someone shut off my power, and I know it was you." Greg sighed, like a parent scolding a child. "These things happen, Ethan." "But HOA members? They get priority support." "No, inconveniences." Ethan's fists clenched, knuckles white. He wanted to wipe that smirk off Greg's face, but he had no proof. Greg knew it. Then they crossed the line. It was a crisp Saturday morning, the kind where Ethan could almost forget the HOA's nonsense. He stepped outside, coffee in hand, keys jingling, planning to tinker with his Camaro. But his heart stopped. His Camaro, his labor of love, years of sweat and savings, was destroyed. The hood was crumpled like foil, the windshield shattered into a mosaic of jagged glass, the grille twisted into a mangled mess. Coffee splashed as the mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the pavement. Ethan stood frozen, rage bubbling, his pulse a war drum in his ears. This wasn't an accident. This was war. He stormed inside, yanked open his laptop, and pulled up his security footage. At 2:43 a.m., a black SUV crept into view, slowing at his driveway. It paused, then roared forward, slamming into his Camaro with sickening force. Metal screamed, the car lurched. The SUV backed up, then hit it again, like the first strike wasn't enough. Ethan's nails dug into his palms. But then he saw it, a tiny HOA emblem on the SUV's rear windshield. They didn't even hide it. They wanted him to know. His hands steady, Ethan grabbed his phone and scrolled to a number he hadn't called in years. Detective Mark Reynolds, a state investigator who specialized in HOA fraud. "Reynolds," the voice answered. "It's Ethan Carter," he said, voice low. "I need a favor." A pause, then Reynolds' tone shifted. "Talk to me." Ethan exhaled. "HOA. My place. They just made the biggest mistake of their lives." Reynolds chuckled. "I'll be there in an hour." Within 48 hours, the HOA office was a circus of flashing lights and uniforms. Cops tore through files, hard drives, and financial records. Sfumity. Residents watched in shock as Greg and his cronies were hauled out in cuffs. Ethan stood across the street, arms crossed, watching Greg, sweaty, disheveled, no longer untouchable, lock eyes with him. "Ethan, this is a misunderstanding," Greg pleaded. Ethan pulled out an orange violation sticker, slapped it on Greg's chest, and said, "Violation, unapproved criminal activity. Should have left me alone." The squad car door slammed shut. The investigation exposed the criminal empire. Greg's HOA wasn't just petty, it was a racket. They'd siphoned homeowner fees into personal accounts, fabricated violations to extort fines, and bullied residents into selling homes for profit. Ethan's defiance triggered a domino effect. Neighbors came forward with stories of harassment and fraud, fueling a class-action lawsuit that crushed the HOA. Greg and his crew faced felony charges, their assets were seized, and the HOA dissolved. Ethan got his legal fees covered and bought the SUV that wrecked his Camaro at auction for pennies. He stripped it for parts, using the money to finish his Camaro's restoration. The engine roared louder than ever. The neighborhood was free, and Ethan... He just laughed when anyone mentioned an HOA, revved his engine, and drove off. But here's the twist. Was Ethan's revenge too far? Greg was a bully, but did Ethan's one call destroy lives unnecessarily? And what about the neighbors who stayed silent? Were they complicit? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Ethan have let it go, or was his justice poetic? Share your take on revenge and power in relationships below, and let's get this debate rolling.